How did that happen? Hmm, interesting. What's going on, guys? What's going on? What's going on? Tamikaze's in the house. Nice to see you. What's going on, KJ? What's going on, T? Francisco, what's going on, dude? Hodge, what's going on? Today was a much better day than we actually expected. That morning gap up, beautiful. I mean, my Facebook call didn't do so great as I kind of expected. I was expecting a little bit more than that, but it is what it is. What's going on, Biren? So today was overall pretty much a solid day. And one play that probably got away from most of everyone was Netflix. What a monster that was today. I just have to put that out there. Netflix was literally a monster. Tesla had a nice move, especially since I know quite a few people were actually holding that play on Tesla. And so hopefully you got some nice profits. Hopefully you actually took profits. And going into tomorrow, I'm actually all cash today. I'm not holding anything overnight for this matter because I primarily do not want to be part of what's the outcome of the data tomorrow. What's going on, Gaston? I don't want to see what happens after the data, having that job loss claim numbers, having the GDP numbers tomorrow. That seems like a lot to digest, and it could either go either direction, basically. So if you're holding a play overnight tonight, I literally do feel like it's a lottery play, or you're actually playing earnings because the GDP number is literally going to be a make or break for the market tomorrow. And from what I'm looking at, it's not looking too nice, just from the setups that I'm looking at, which I'll touch bases on. But as we saw, of course, we had a head and shoulders on ES. It actually looks a little bit more, it looks a little more fluent right now. And literally one more leg down will literally just likely drop us from the neckline on that. And that's what's actually the scary part about where we're at right now and going into that data tomorrow. And that's where the uncomfort level came to me. Even though I do see futures actually pushing, that could easily be wiped out by morning. So that's not where my comfort level is. And so that's why I am all cash. And that's what you actually have to decide sometimes, guys, is when to push, the pedal and when to hit the brake, pretty much, right? You want to hit the gas, when to hit the brake. And this is one of those moments that I decided to hit the brake and I don't want to hold anything overnight. I don't want to risk it. And that's just, a sentiment wise. I don't want to see, the fact that if GDP is bad tomorrow, market gaps down, and I actually realize, you know what, I shouldn't have held anything. And guess what? Now I'm down, what, 50, 60% tomorrow. And that's the mindset that I actually have right now. And so that's why I'm really happy I'm actually cash. Even if we do gap up for whatever reason tomorrow and I end up missing it, I'm still not going to be mad because I knew I actually made the right decision. And so that's why I just want to put that out there for you guys so you get the right mindset of knowing when to actually stay silent and when not to. Okay. But as you see, we do have that head and shoulders. One push down tomorrow, we likely break that neck. Now diving in a little bit closer, if I probably go into the 2 hour or so, this looks a little bit more so like a bear flag to me, or a bear pennant, I would say. And that's what I really didn't like as far as where we ended up closing today. That looks more so like a bear pennant. And I don't like that level that we're at right now, that you have pretty much a head and shoulders formation, and on top of that, you have a bear pennant. There's nothing to me there that actually screams bullish unless GDP numbers are solid tomorrow. And that's why I chose not to really swing anything looking at, where we closed today. I was expecting a little bit of a stronger push today. And if we actually didn't end up forming this kind of bear pennant and we broke out above this level of that 43.78, maybe I would have took a small, very small position and held calls overnight. But I don't like this bear pennant, and I don't like that head and shoulders formation that we're pretty much locked into right now. And that's why I ended up making that decision. And so that's where you see where I stand right now. We can go either direction, like I mentioned, okay? So that's ES. Let me actually pull out to the 1 day. Let me take a look at NASDAQ, see where we are right now. In which NASDAQ, I don't really see much more movement. And why did my phone go off? Okay. Let me get down to the 4 hour, see a better image. And we actually hit a nice little support level. right here. As you see, we hit that prior, and this was up and under as we hit support resistance, teetering between that support level. Okay, so it's a nice level that we're at right now in terms of tech, but again, that could easily change come tomorrow. Okay, how about we get the today's push tomorrow? That could likely happen if we get good GDP numbers. If those GDP numbers are bad tomorrow, we're not really going to see any kind of push. We're just going to see a waterfall straight down likely. Okay. But again, Nasdaq's in a nice spot. I like Nasdaq spot more than where S&P is. And but again, it's a wild card tonight. Okay. And head and shoulders are just on both formations of Nasdaq and S&P, which does not work in the favor right now. Okay. One that actually stood out to me that for Nasdaq that actually did look really bad was Facebook after I did sell out at open, which I'm glad I took my profits right at open. But if I dial in, let's see if I get it down to the 15 minute. I'm actually going to be watching this a lot tomorrow. I almost took puts on it today, but I contemplated it and I didn't. But this is actually a nice head and shoulders formation playing out on Facebook on the 15 minute as well. So when I saw that massive candle break that neckline, I was contemplating whether to get in right around that neckline when I saw it just pretty much just rolling over, but I didn't. But this is one that I'm going to watch for continuation. I'm likely looking at this heading down to 330 to 384. I don't expect it to happen tomorrow, so I wouldn't say that. Barely who is talking? Are you seriously telling me you don't know who this guy is? Barely, you remember this is the guy that you told me to hold Facebook calls overnight? All right, I'm just going to leave that there. But again, Facebook, one of those Nasdaq components where this is a head and shoulders, so it's not necessarily one of those favorites that we didn't see push. I was expecting that push. If you remember last night, I was expecting that push to the 349 level. We didn't get that strong of a push. It just pretty much, spiked, and that was just a fake out. Okay. And so this is one I'll be watching for the downside. I know that everyone's watching Netflix pretty much. And if you remember on live last night, I was pointing out Netflix on that inverse head and shoulders still being intact because even though it dropped and we saw this little few red candles just drop off there, you would have thought that the pattern was breaking, but the peak was already in on the drop. And so we could have continued to chop even into Friday. But that one massive candle just literally just blasted it right out of the neckline. And that was just a beautiful move. It happened so quickly by the time it hit like 950 or so. If I dial into like the 3 minute to show you. By the time that it hit about 954, now 950, it was already up a lot. From where we ended the day yesterday around 584, we literally in like about 950, we're already at over 600. That was about what over that was over $14 move at that point of the day. So that's insanely crazy, but it was nice that we actually, if you did catch it last night, you were actually having eyes on it. And hopefully, if you did chase it, which you shouldn't have done, then you made quite a bit of profit on that one. All right. So that was one that we pointed out last night. Let me see what else. I actually wanted to point out Chipotle. I know a lot of people don't actually look at Chipotle, but this is actually one that actually kind of stood out a little bit to me, and it looks a little bit better. I want to say on the 1 hour, get a more defined sh- picture of that. But as you see here, it has a little bit of a wedge going on. You could say it's a little bit of a bear pennant also because of what the actual leg is going down. And so I'm going to be watching this one, very indecisive candle right there at the end of the wedge. And then we do have that gap fill very high. I did see about 1,000 calls traded. I think right around that 15, no, right around the 1850 mark or so. That there might have been that there was about 1,000 calls that were trading on Chipotle, and usually the liquidity is very low on Chipotle. So just keep it on the radar tomorrow. So this is one I just want to highlight. I'm gonna keep it on the watch list. It's not gonna be very high on the watch list though. Let me see also on Shop. If everyone remembers, we had that beautiful diamond on Shop, and I know a lot of you were pointing it out. I just felt the need that to show that how much the progress has been for the diamond that's played out. It was a little bit choppy, but then that just flushed out pretty much back to back days. where you had those massive red candles right there. And so as we continue to play out, I'm targeting us down to about that 1300 level. So that's about another $46 move down. And I'll keep an eye on this one. So this is another one. If you definitely see the market go bad on GDP tomorrow, this is one to keep your eyes on tomorrow because shop is definitely a fast mover. And even though the premium is very high, this will definitely pay. All right. So that's another one that I'll keep on my radar for tomorrow. This one also crossed my eyes was Wayfair. I know a lot of people don't. This is pretty much an under the radar name. A lot of people don't look at, but it has a beautiful inverse head and shoulders, similar to what we saw with Netflix. It literally took one day, in which is just a massive move, and it broke out. So this could definitely have one of those type of Netflix moves where it just has that massive candle that breaks out, and we see this just push right into the level that I will be looking at is around that 316 level, but that wouldn't be in one day. If I'm looking for a solid move, it'll be right around this 299 level, which will pretty much give it about a $29 move, which for this stock is very volatile. I can see that happening. Okay, so this is one kind of just stood out to me just because of how the Netflix play was and the same scenario that we're looking at. Let me see why I actually had PayPal actually highlighted. I don't remember why this one was on the radar, but likely because of the fact that we had it was showing weakness today on a solid day in which the market was pretty much flat to green. And let me see if I get it down. There we go. So I would look to see this one down right around that 252, 251 level. If we do end up seeing weakness tomorrow, this is another one that we're going to see another leg down, in which at that support level, that's when I'll decide whether, at that point in time, during market conditions, if it's pretty much a dip buy for me, if you want to say that. So maybe it might be a scalp, maybe it might be a swing, depending on where market levels are at that time and when it reaches the support. All right. So that's one keep on the radar if the market does drop. Another one, of course, BA was on the radar. Everyone's been watching BA. And I believe quite a few people are actually swinging calls on Boeing, in which you do have that gap. The target was pretty much about that 230 level. Right around that 230 level is where everyone's targeting. So it's about a $4 and change move in what we're looking at for Boeing. But if it does end up breaking this resistance, which is on the daily, that will likely be a more explosive move that we're looking at. So this can definitely go pop off and it will be a larger move. The only thing that I would hate to see is if the market is red and this doesn't end up getting that move, but it does break the resistance, in which you're pretty much the continuation, the momentum is going to be capped off, basically. So I'll see how this one does tomorrow. I didn't take a position to swing overnight. I did scalp it today for a day trade, but I didn't hold anything overnight, like I said. So this is going to be a nice one tomorrow. If we have a nice green day tomorrow, Boeing is definitely going to be at the top of the watch list tomorrow because that would see strong momentum. All right. That's another one. Let me see if I had anything else highlighted. I had AFRM highlighted. Let me see if I get down to a lower time frame, see what we're looking at. This one I'm actually looking at on the ascending, expanding wedge is that we're right near support on this. If you see the support line that pretty much aligns with the bodies and the candles wicks, I'm actually looking at this one. If the market's green as well, this is going to be one of those where I believe that this one's going to fly. I saw calls all the way out to 125 strike that had heavy volume. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on this one because as we saw, this one had strong momentum before the market decided to hit a crap on us and give us all this volatility. But this one was just flying. So I'm going to watch for this one. If we do see markets holding up, I'm definitely going to be looking at this one along with BA, likely at the top of my watch list. Okay. Let me see another one that I had. RTX actually just had a wedge. This was the only reason I practically had this one on my radar. If you see, it's a nice little wedge. It's in the aerospace area, so along with Boeing, I'm gonna keep this one on just pretty much in the middle of my watch list tomorrow. We'll see what it does, but as it continues to feel this wedge to the side, I do want to see if it ends up breaking up or breaking down. So this will be one that I'm gonna be watching. Let me see what else I had. I also had pen. Huh, interesting. Why did I have pen on here? Let me see why I had pen on my watch list. All right, perfect. So it was a nice little head and shoulders formation. As we see, it's on a larger time frame. So you have that left shoulder, you have the head, and you have the right shoulder. And so I'll be watching to see if this one breaks the neckline. If it ends up breaking that neckline, you do have a little bit of a gap right around this level right here. So this is going to be something to keep an eye on. Right around that 67 level, so you're looking at about a $3 and change move. Actually, no, I take that back. About a $4 and change move. All right. So that's going to be a nice one if this ends up breaking that neckline on this head and shoulders. And that'll be a nice move down to that 67 level. All right. And that's on pen. Let's see why I had DK on G on here. Actually, I didn't realize because we also have a gap fill here. So that kind of coincides with pen actually going down as it has a bearish pattern. Same thing with DraftKings. If this is likely going to follow suit, as we've seen that this thing has dropped massively from that 64 level all the way down to now being at 48. That's a massive drop that we had, but it could end up dropping about another $2 or so, fill this gap, and that may be the dip buy opportunity at that point. To I wouldn't say a long position. I mean, it may be an overnight swing, but during these market conditions, I'm not exactly looking to go long on any positions. I want to see how the if the market conditions do get better, obviously GDP looks better, and we see a solid momentum off of the move that we had today. Oh yeah, okay. Maybe I'll take a small. I'll dip my toe into it, basically. All right. So that's another one that kind of coincides with the bearish movement I'm looking at for Penn, and that actually wraps up the ones that I actually had on my watch list. Of course, I don't know who's still holding Tesla. Anyone still holding a Tesla, by the way? Don't be afraid to say yes. You can say yes. But of course, we had a nice little inside day. And actually, if I pointed out on the daily, everyone did say we actually have an inside bar here. If you see, it's below and actually higher than the previous candle, and that made it an inside bar. And so we're likely going to see this push tomorrow. Hopefully, granted, GDP does not ruin the day for us tomorrow. But I'm likely looking at this one. If we do end up pushing right above that 785 level, I'll definitely kind of be in this one. I'll take a scalp on it, and I'll write that one up. But the 800 mark, the flow on this one has been coming insanely crazy on 800 strike. I don't understand what it is. I mean, obviously, it does seem like it's gonna go there, but if that GDP data ruins it tomorrow, I don't know how many calls are gonna be expiring at that 800 level. And if we actually ruin the day tomorrow, then remember the delivery numbers are gonna come out on Friday, and if that disappoints, then you're gonna have a lot of bag holders on expiration day holding an $800 call out of the money, which would be pretty sad. But I do expect this one to push at least up to the resistance, in which that will push us right around that 800 level, right to the resistance of this. So ballpark, yeah, I can understand why everyone's buying into it. Just caution yourself holding that and continuing to hold it, especially if you are down a lot. If you're down somewhat, try and take some risk off the table if you don't see that move tomorrow morning off of that GDP, okay? That would be my best suggestion. Take some risk off the table, and if you wanted to continue to hold, then just hold it and see what it does. And maybe even take the risk. I wouldn't even say maybe take the risk, but possibly take the risk on the delivery numbers and see what it does. All right. Other than that, any names anyone had something in particular to look at? Anyone holding anything overnight? Take that as a no. Izzy, are you holding anything? Thoughts on Snow and Oxy? Well, Oxy, I believe, has been bullish. And yes, it is bullish. That's a nice little wedge you have going on, actually, on Oxy. I do like that little wedge you have going on. So I would definitely keep an eye on that wedge. Now, granted the move that it's already had, of course, I don't like that gap. I don't like that gap in place. But of course, energy has been such a mover, and I do expect this to make another leg higher. Let's see if I expand the chart. Wow, you do have a nice little cup that could be in the formation here. I do like that now. So I can understand why this is actually looking very nice. That's a nice cup that could be in the process on Oxy. And if I actually remember, this was a very favorite ticker of one famous person, Tamakaze. He would always torment me with his name, Oxy. So I just wanted to point that out there. And I'm pretty sure that he probably missed this entire run on Oxy after tormenting me for years with his name. He would always say, I'm buying Oxy, and he probably missed this entire move. But I do like this rounding bottom formation. You do have a nice cup formation that could end up being right into the resistance of 32, right around that 32.57 level. So that's about another $2 and change move that you're looking at on Oxy, which I could see that end up happening. So definitely a nice position here. I just wouldn't enter at the moment that it's at, but if you ended up getting in earlier, that's definitely still a hold in my book. All right. Let me see what else there was. You did mention snow, so I'll just take a quick glance at it. Wow, snow actually dropped after pushing for I don't know how many days, how many weeks. This thing is actually pushing. So now it's finally decided to drop. Let's see where a little bit of our resistance level is. So we're right about that resistance level. So if you see the up and under, you actually held, you pushed back up. If you ended up dropping, you recovered. So I do like this support level that it's at right now. Let me actually dial in just a little bit to a lower time frame. Let's see if we have any gaps that need to be filled. So we do have a gap right around this level right here. So if we end up breaking down, this is likely the level that you're looking at, and I'll just put it in a different color. So you're likely looking around that 278 level. If this ends up breaking that trend line and market volatility kicking in, I can definitely see this crashing down to that 278 level. So that's one to keep in mind. If you do end up holding here, then of course that gap fill above is likely to be filled very soon. Granted market, all right? Let me see what else there was that you guys mentioned real quick. I'll take another like 3 or 4 tickers and we'll call it a night and we'll pray that GDP is going to be good tomorrow. Wow, that was actually a beautiful gap up. A very beautiful gap up. Now, the fact that you have a fat gap that was prior, that you're already filling, and now you just created a fat gap by that gap up that you just had, is a very interesting point right now. And just stretching out, let me see if you have any other resistance levels that are looking at. And so the resistance level that I'm looking at is right around this 102 level. So if I'm getting close enough to the cent mark, you're close enough to about that 102.62 level is where you're going to see some resistance if we get a continuation move on this tomorrow. If we end up rejecting that, then you're going to tether around this area, likely get some sideways chop movement in which your support, if it ends up holding, will be around that 97 level. And hopefully this doesn't retrace back down to fill that gap below. All right. So either that 97 level or that 102 level you need to break and then we'll see this a continuation either up or down. All right. PZZA had news. What kind of news was that? Papa John's. Wow, look at that thing fly. That is a beautiful trendline support this likely has right here. Let me see this. See where our trendline support is. This one looks a little bit more tricky. So it looks like, yeah, that's our trendline right there. That up and under move. When you ended up breaking down, you recovered, broke down, broke down. So I do like the spot that it's in right now. We ended up just barely cracking that trend line, but we're still holding above. Now let's see our level of resistance that we're looking at. So we're looking at right around this level of our resistance. So if I'm looking at that level of resistance I want to see it get over is around that 130 level. If we're able to get over that 130 level, then we're likely looking at probably fresh highs right there at that point. So that'll be one that I do like. I actually haven't looked at Papa John's in quite a while. But this is definitely one that I do like. And looking at where this level of resistance is lining up, you could end up popping right up until about that 132, 133-ish area if we end up getting a continuation to the upside tomorrow. All right. So that's what I would look at for Papa John's. And I'll take one more, which I do see ET. What is ET, by the way? Is that an energy stock? It is an energy stock. I haven't looked at much energy stocks. I'm not gonna lie. I know that energy has been pushing like crazy, but this is usually a Tamakaze type sector in which he loves energy and a little bit of the weird ticker names. So if I'm looking at a resistance level, this is looking like a beautiful resistance level. Bodies peaked right here. We had a little bit of up and under moves that support resistance right there. We had a nice little wick right there. And so you want to see this get right back over that level of that 972 level to get a nice push, a nice little follow through. And then your next level of resistance that we're looking at is right around here, in which we had that consolidation. You would consider this a little bit of a consolidation here, and so you'll likely get a push right into that $10 mark, in which is about a 50, close enough to a 50-cent move that you're looking for the upside. Tom got a leap. I'm not gonna lie, I actually do like this. So I do like the fact that he got a leap, and I also do see that double bottom, so that also does give you a little bit more of confidence holding this. So it's you had a double bottom right around that 860 level, so I approve of that one having a leap on this. This is definitely a nice move. Of course, the short term mark would be around that $10 mark, and then of course you do have higher upside, in which let's see where your higher upside is. See if I can get a level around this. So I will be looking right around this level as the next mark. After that $10 mark pushes, I'm looking right around the 1043 mark. So yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a slow mover. That's typically how energy is. So you're looking at 10, and then that 1048 mark is what I'm looking at for the follow through. But definitely a long-term hold here because I do see the uptrend. It's a defined uptrend here that we have a nice little, which I would say is a nice little rounding bottom that it could potentially make here. If we're looking to see that follow through to the $10 mark and then the 1048 mark, it could be a nice little rounding bottom and confirming with that double bottom that we just had. All right. So other than that, that kind of wraps up the night, guys. I do believe that tech is really going to ride on GDP. So as a whole, if you're holding tech, that is literally going to be a make or break for GDP. So keep an eye on that. But other than that, we'll see what tomorrow brings. I am leaning towards bearish. I will say that as my sentiment. I'm not as bullish as everyone else is. Which I did see that Aries a little bit bullish. There, there's some names in there in our chat, premium chat, that are a little bit bullish. They do see like a diamond sort of bottom. I can see it happening, but considering the larger formation of head and shoulders, I particularly see more of a bear pennant. And so for that reason, I'm not as bullish. There's just too many things working against us as well, with the whole tapering, with the bond yield still holding up, and then also the debt ceiling. So it feels like there's too many things working against the market right now. I need to see a little bit more of a relief, some kind of sign of relief in which the sentiment changes for us to actually rally and get back to a higher spot in which we try to rally towards that 450 level on SPY. But that's just the mental sentiment that I have. Other than that, though, guys, I'll leave you guys with that tonight. And you guys have a good night. We'll see what GDP does tomorrow. And get ready for some tendies, all right, guys?